In this episode of Pro Church Tools, you're going to learn 3 advanced strategies for prepping your church's services. I'll show you how my church prepares for Sunday each and every week, and by the end of this episode, you'll know exactly how to implement these tips in your church as well.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Pro Church Tools, the show where in 10 minutes or less, you're going to get a dose of tips and tactics to help your church share the message of Jesus while we navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm your host, Alex Mills, joined as always by the boss man, Brady Shearer.
Alex, when I began attending the church that I'm serving at now, there were a number of dramatic shifts in expectation for me that I had to make, because up until this point, I had only served at really small churches. In fact, the 3 churches that I served at previous to the church I'm at now were new church plants in mostly rural Canada of 100 people or fewer. So the church that I'm at now has about 2,000 in weekend attendance.
Wow.
And this was something that I had never experienced before. But in the last 3 to 4 years that I've been serving at this church and serving on weekends, I've picked up a number of different strategies that I wish the churches that I had served at previously had been implementing. And I don't think that they're necessarily only for big churches.
Right.
And so what we want to do in this episode is talk through these 3 unique strategies that I had never experienced before, but I think can be beneficial to every church.
Well, Brad, I've been to your church. I'm really familiar with your church. And so when we were talking through this episode before we even started recording, I immediately thought, well, I wonder how applicable these things are going to be to my church context. You know, for those of us who've been listening for a while, you know, I'm a pastor of a church of about 100 people. But as we walked through this episode, I realized, I've been doing these things in our church without knowing it, but I usually only reserve them for special services. So like if we're planning a big service for Christmas or for Easter, we'll just naturally do these things because we're taking more care for that service because we know there's going to be more people there. But like you said, I think that these things we're going to talk about in this episode are so relevant and so practical for every church in any context. And it's just going to take your services from where they are now, to a new level that you haven't experienced before.
So let's talk about the prep that we do throughout the week in preparation for the Sunday service. The first thing is that we have a Thursday night worship practice, which isn't unusual. That's something that we did even at the church plants that I served at prior to the church that I'm at now. And then on Sunday morning, the worship team arrives to the church building at around 6:15 a.m.
Okay.
Real early,
Yeah.
And they spend about an hour, again, rehearsing the songs that they're preparing to share and sing with the congregation. I arrive as the host, so I do announcements and giving and transitions and kind of offer that on-stage presence at church. I arrive at around 7:15.
Fashionably late.
Exactly. Feels good. Walk in. Everyone's been, at it for a while. And I'm like, don't worry, I'm here now.
Guys. It's fine. We can start now.
And then that's actually what we do, because at 7:20, we all sit down, the entire team that's serving on that Sunday morning, and we do what's called a walkthrough. So we'll have the service director, and he or she will have printed off the planning center order of service.
Yep.
And basically, he or she will then walk us through exactly what's about to happen in a Sunday morning. So he'll say like, okay, 5-minute countdown is going to hit at this time on the clock. Brady, you're going to come out on stage with 2 minutes left on the countdown. You want to welcome any guests. Make sure you acknowledge the online viewers. And then at 1 minute, Brady's going to walk off the stage. Worship team, you walk on. And so literally, like step by step, we are going through every single part, order of service, just talking through it. And here, what I'll often do, because I've already prepared my announcements, but nobody else has heard them, is I'll kind of ask questions and be like, okay, so we're doing this backpack giveaway. I was a little unclear, are we doing this or this? And I'll just make sure that all the details that I have in mind are correct, and so that I can flow in my hosting portion of service well. So that's the walkthrough.
One might call this the talk-through walkthrough.
The talk-through walkthrough. That's exactly what you could say. Right. From there, we graduate to what we call the run-through.
Nice.
And we're not purposely naming these ridiculous things. The run-through, though, is where we do a service from beginning to end with nobody in the auditorium, no one in the sanctuary, but we do it as if it was a full regular service.
So you're singing every song, you're doing all your transitions, you're doing everything.
Exactly. And we have 3 services on a Sunday morning. This is like our 4th hidden secret service.
Right.
And it really allows us to go through everything and make sure that what we've talked through and theoretically are preparing ourselves to do actually will then be doable.
Right.
And so we put on the 5-minute countdown. I come out at 2 minutes and I do my hosting introduction. Then the worship team comes out. They do every single song that they're going to do in service. Mm-hmm. And then I walk out. We work on the transition from worship to hosting. I do announcements. I do giving. I transition into the message series. Pastor walks out. We do that transition. And then the only part about a run through that's different from an actual service is that the pastor won't deliver their full 20, 30, 40-minute message. Basically, they'll do their bullet points. They'll make sure that they're on the same page as those in the production booth. Okay, slide comes up here. Okay, video needs to be triggered at this point. And then that's the run through. And then the third and final thing that I really, really appreciate what we do at my church, and this is specific to our lead pastor, Bill, who speaks 3 out of every 4 weekends, is that every single Sunday morning during our walkthrough, our run through, before that first service at 9 a.m. begins, he is asking questions and purposefully eliciting feedback on his upcoming message. He'll say, okay, I'm speaking about this, and I'm going to use this story or this analogy or this study to illustrate and hopefully drive home this part of the message. Does that make sense to you? And look, Pastor Bill is a brilliant man.
Pretty smart guy.
And he has been preparing for this message all week.
Right.
He has done way more research and way more prep work than any single person he's asking for feedback from.
Yeah.
But we are still being invited into the process because we're hearing that content for the first time, just as he knows the congregation is going to be hearing that content for the first time. And he's asking, does that make sense? Is there anything that I should change? And the great thing about this, Alex, also is that not only does it help him deliver a better message, but it also demonstrates, because he's at the top of this organization, he demonstrates to everyone else, it doesn't matter how prepared you are. It doesn't matter how good you are at your specific role. It doesn't matter how great of a drummer you are, how great of a talker you are. You can always get better. And so him modeling that shows to the rest of us, hey, if you ever get criticism or feedback, that's what everyone gets. And so it's good. Use that to be better.
Yeah, that demonstrates such a high degree of humility that Pastor Bill just kind of walks with. It's just who he is. And like you said, when somebody in that kind of top leadership position emulates that attitude, that willingness to be wrong or be corrected, or just kind of the content that he creates, holding it with open hands, instead of closed hands, that's going to trickle down to every part of your leadership team, and just going to kind of create this new culture where it's like, it's okay to be wrong so that we can learn and be better. And that's what's so important about these service prep tips, is that, like, if you're a church that does multiple services, like, you don't want that first service to be the first time you're doing all this stuff, and kind of treat those first service people as guinea pigs. And if you're a church like mine where you only have one service, you only have one shot, and so you don't want to be learning after that service and then hope that you implement those changes next week, And so to do this prep before the service, whether your church is doing one service, 3, 6, however many you're doing, it's just going to deliver a better experience to the people that are coming to church, and really help, like, get rid of any barriers. Like, you know what it's like to be sitting in church and, like, things are flowing really well, and then all of a sudden there's, like, this awkward transition that obviously hasn't been rehearsed. It's like you can actually disengage from what's going on in that moment. And so if we're trying to facilitate an encounter with God for all these people who come to church, like, why not deal with all this stuff first before the surface, get rid of any of those barriers, and then lead them well when it's time. When that countdown hits 0 and it's time to go, we can lead them well.
And look, maybe you're not at a place as a church where you can get everyone who's serving on a Sunday to do a full run-through service. But maybe you can just implement this walkthrough. It only takes about 5 minutes, and you can just have a sheet in front of you, print it off maybe directly from Planning Center, and you can walk through those tricky transition moments that you've got to get everyone on the same page about. Otherwise, they could be that thing that you said stalls the momentum of the service. And that can make a big difference when it comes to the atmosphere that you're trying to set on a Sunday morning. So feel free to implement these. Doesn't matter what size of church that you are, they can be helpful. The featured resource we wanted to highlight on this episode of Pro Church Tools is that, hey, we've lowered the prices of Nucleus by 50%. Nucleus is our church website builder that we've been working on for the last 2 years since we introduced it. And one of the things that we've always wanted to do is take some of the profit that we're earning, because Nucleus has been very successful, and return it back to churches. We're not a publicly traded company. We're bootstrapped, which means we have no investors or angel funding, which means we don't have to answer to a board. We get to answer to our churches. So the full announcement to that lower prices and what it means for you if you're already a user, or what it means for you if you're thinking about Nucleus, is linked in the show notes for this episode. That'll do it for this episode of Pro Church Tools. We'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Pro Church Tools. Make sure to subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so you never miss another video.
Hey, and if you like this video, why don't you go ahead and tell us? Hit that like button so we know how you feel.
Smash it!